And welcome into the Thursday edition. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game, presented by Green Ventures Landscaping for homes and businesses that want to stand out, not blend in. Visit greenventureslandscaping.com. Live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Robbie Stanley alongside Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Thursday morning. Hope everybody's off to a fantastic start of their day here today. Joe Rexrode, happy Thursday. Good morning to you. What's going on?
Not much. Great game last night. Don't appreciate, Kaharski acting like he cares and he's sending texts, like taunting texts. But so that's going to be annoying because it's pretty cool to see what the Knicks are doing. But great first game.
Good first game. Ian Safar, your team was a victor last night. How are we feeling in the aftermath of game one this morning?
Good morning. Doing just fine, thanks. A little tired. Go New York, go New York, go. Joe trolling back to Paul. At this point, it's just straight trolling. I don't even know if he believes what he's saying.
That's true.
Yes. But doing good, yeah. Worried, early on looked good. This is a back and forth game. Got a little bit worried there. Brunson was off to start, but they pretty much played like they have the entire playoffs, team-wise, passing around, good passing, made some shots towards the end, played good defense. Both teams played good defense, which should make this series interesting. Wemby, of course, is a freak, and he's tough to deal with all the time. But, it was good to see them make a comeback, and Brunson kind of took over in the fourth. OG had a good third. It was an entertaining game. Not the best played game, a little sloppy on both sides. But overall, hey, game one win. Can't complain.
No, can't complain. And erased a 14-point deficit in the second half while they were at it. So that's big-time stuff from the New York Knicks there, Joe, who you hate.
No, I don't hate them. I haven't thought they're that good. They are. I mean, look, you gotta tip your cap to them. The Spurs kind of take the game back over, and the Knicks can't hit the broadside of a barn, but then they get that one offensive rebound, and Brunson hits that three in the corner after he's probably missed 4 or 5 in a row. I mean, the guy's clutch, man. And then the other shot he hit in the lane where he was basically – it was almost like Patrick Mahomes making that pass when he was like, horizontal in that Super Bowl. I mean, he was like already falling down. I don't know how he made that shot, but he swished it. So – that's the thing. The Spurs are young. The Knicks are more battle tested. I think the Spurs are better. Also, I mean, Dylan Harper needs to be on the floor, man. Dylan Harper, if you have to choose between Dylan Harper and De'Aaron Fox right now, I think it's easy. And they made the wrong. Mitch Johnson made the wrong choice last night. Now sometimes they play together, but I mean, De'Aaron Fox is not himself right now. He had some really bad plays down the stretch.
I mean, the only thing that's really disappointing to me is, for the sake of our program, that this is not Oklahoma City and the Knicks didn't go in there and win game one, because there'd be some panic in your eyes right now if that's the case, based on the wager that you made.
Yeah. Thank goodness that I apparently didn't say the Spurs too. So kudos to me.
Ian, we'd be one win away from a bald cap and a 3-hour performance as Paul Kuharski from Rexrode.
Oh, that
was
beautiful. The 2 wins against OKC was a lock.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
Only they could have held up their end of the bargain.
Yeah.
I mean, the Spurs beat OKC, and the Knicks just beat the Spurs by 10. So there you go.
Right.
Yeah, don't start doing
the
transitive. Don't start doing the transitive theory of sports.
He's right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the transitive theory of sports is questionable, but
science.
Yeah. But I definitely did. I have been
complete
underrating the Knicks.
Hater.
Well, no, not a hater.
Yes.
I'll be honest with you. I don't watch a lot of NBA regular season basketball. I don't watch a lot. Like, I don't the NBA, NHL. I like the playoffs.
Did you watch the postseason?
Yes, and I know that they've been red hot. I also
12 wins in a row.
Right. I totally – it's the East sucks. But I did watch them when they played the Pistons this year. Like, I watched 3 games, and like the Pistons beat them by 30 every time. And I'm like, I don't think these Knicks are very good. So I was, like, biased by watching those games. And sometimes teams just don't match up well with other teams, you know? So that's the thing. But the matchups are different. I still think I have a chance of winning that bet, but it doesn't matter now. The Knicks are up 1-0. You know the last time they were up in an NBA Finals series, guys? You know when that was?
1999?
It was the day that OJ was in the Bronco.
Oh, boy.
Yes.
Well,
Oh, boy.
let's hope
Robbie,
that doesn't
you were too.
mean something.
I think I was.
That's true.
I think I was legitimately too. So, yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Chris MacFarland, introduced as the Predators president of hockey ops and general manager yesterday at Bridgestone Arena. We will have Alex Daugherty from the Tennessean on later in the program to get his thoughts on everything that's gone down with Chris MacFarland and the Predators over the last couple of days. Joe, some general impressions here. He didn't say a ton about exactly, what his plan was, what that was going to look like. A lot of the answers kind of circled back to, I just got here and we're going to look under the hood a little bit and see what needs to happen here. One of the things he did talk about and was asked about in the press conference was, what is the process going to look like in terms of evaluating the coaching staff and what that kind of immediate process looks like, because as we've discussed on the show, that's something that you're going to have to determine here pretty quickly if you're Chris MacFarland. Here is what new Predators general manager Chris MacFarland had to say on the process with the coaching staff.
What will your process be like relative to making decisions about the coaching staff, and where does that fall in the pecking order of things that you have to do immediately?
Again, it's very similar. I know Andrew Burnett a lot from the scouting circles and in the past. I know he's a very good person. Derek McKenzie and Luke Richardson, I had the good fortune of having as players, so I know them a little bit during my Columbus days. So, I'm going to call all those guys this week. I'm going to meet with, when Jeff Keelty and Scott Nickel and the staff, get back from the combine. We're going to bring the pro guys in next week to get up to speed, and I'll chat with Brew, today or tomorrow, and we'll, like I said, I got to get a feel for things before, looking at all that type of stuff. So, but I look forward to chatting with Brew here today or tomorrow.
So it sounds like here in pretty short order, the conversation with Andrew Burnett will take place when it comes to Chris MacFarland. So that part is pretty interesting. Like I said, Joe, I mean, he wasn't willing yesterday, and I don't blame him, to get into the kind of the nitty gritty of what all the plan is going to look like here moving forward here. But overall, what were your impressions of what Chris MacFarland had to say yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, everything made sense. I thought I liked the honesty when he was, just talking about like how hard it is to get like that franchise player. I mean, we talk about it all the time, but that's the reality of the situation. I mean, they were operating. He got to that organization and they were operating with the benefit of just having a team that got to the top of the draft on a great year to be at the top of the draft. And like you said, of course, he's not going to specify anything right now. I thought he came off well. I mean, I think it's very rare that pressers like this aren't quote unquote won. He, came off like a smart guy, not a flashy guy. I thought he had, I thought there were a lot of interesting things in there. The great person thing about Burnett, it's like, what about as a coach though? A really great person. You can run wild with that if you want. But yeah, I mean, overall, I thought he came off well, and Preds have fresh eyes and eyes that have seen a lot of success here on the whole thing.
I thought potentially, Joe, and again, there wasn't a lot that he was willing to kind of divulge and go down yesterday. But Alex Daugherty pointed this out as well, and I think it's interesting. He was talking about the current roster with the Predators, says, there's a lot that he's still got to work on and dive into, and he's got to familiarize himself with the prospects. And, you can have a general idea of what the prospects look like, but, kind of taking that deep dive as general manager when it's your team, there is a difference there. But, he was talking about the roster and, isn't ready to analyze what kind of work there is to be done yet. But he did add quote, there's a danger that we're in the mushy middle. And I think a lot of Predators fans are like, it's not a danger, buddy. That's where we've been. The mushy middle. Hey, buddy, that's what it is. The mushy middle. So I found that quote to be interesting. And he was in Colorado at the beginning of their tenure. It wasn't great, right? And now, when they walked in the door in Denver, they had already drafted Nathan MacKinnon.
Right.
So there is that. I mean, he had the luxury of, from the moment he got there in Colorado, he looked down the hallway and he's like, oh, Nathan MacKinnon's down there. So there's a difference when you've got that there.
Yes.
But I found that part of the answer interesting of, the danger of being in the mushy middle. I think a lot of Predators fans liked hearing that part of it. It's like, yeah, it is a danger. Let's get out of there.
Yeah, Jason's already showed up with the hockey mask, man, and then the axe. It's we're beyond danger here.
Yeah.
I like the quote. Quote, is the goal here to make the playoffs, make a wild card, feel good about that, and high five each other, or is the goal here to build a team that can compete and try to bring a Stanley Cup to Broadway? I mean, it's a quote that you want to hear as a fan. Now, I will point out that Barry Trotz's intro presser talked a lot about the Stanley Cup and the parade on Broadway. So, everybody's going to talk about that. Everybody wants that to happen.
How do people know that's where the parade route would go? What if they go down to Mumbrian?
That is a good point. That is a very good point. What if they just go to East Nashville?
Yeah.
People
just keep acting like they know the parade route.
I mean, why can't we have the parade down here in Nolensville? We have no traffic problems whatsoever. Let's bring it down here, man.
Nothing says Stanley Cup championship like a parade in Nolensville, baby.
You have paved roads there? Yeah.
We do.
Okay.
Thank you. We do. Yeah, we come down here and get get some Amish sandwiches. I did Sean Henry's favorite sandwiches right here. He probably would want the parade to come down here. So that's a very good point by you.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
Throwing it out there. 615-737-1025. Our phone number.
Those drunks on Broadway don't want this. They want to keep drinking.
Right. Exactly. Just get it away from them. We are off and running on Robby and Rexrode. We'll take your thoughts, your impressions, your reaction to Chris MacFarland and his introductory press conference yesterday with the Nashville Predators. More on that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game, taking your thoughts, your reaction to Chris MacFarland and his introductory press conference yesterday with the Nashville Predators. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Again, MacFarland, I would say careful in some of his answers yesterday in terms of not wanting to go too far down the road of like laying out the plan and how long is it going to take and what's it mean for all the coaches and all these things, which is understandable. A couple days on the job here, but I think it's going to be pretty fascinating to see how he handles the roster part of it this offseason as well. And one of the things he was asked about yesterday, Joe, was the goaltending situation with a goaltender that he is familiar with Justus Annunen, who began his career in Colorado, was traded here to Nashville for Scott Wedgwood in an exchange of backup goaltenders at the time. And the goaltending situation as a whole, a very interesting part of the Nashville Predators heading into next season. Here's what Chris MacFarland had to say on that part of the situation that he's inheriting.
I know a couple seasons ago, you were on the other side of the Justus Annunen trade. What have you made of his improvement since that trade, and what are just your really early thoughts on the goaltending situation here?
Super happy for Juice. As the staff here told me, there's big Juice and little Juice here in the net. And I think, when we drafted Annunen there, our scouts were super excited on him. I think, for us at the organizational cycle that we were in, we got off to a little bit of a bumpy start that year, and there was a lot of pressure and the pressure in the net at the time, and we just felt we needed to stabilize there, and we did. We moved a young guy with upside for what we felt was a more established veteran calming type guy that for the stage we were in when Colorado was in, that's gonna be hard for me to break, so bear with me on that. But Scott Wedgwood came in and did a fantastic job for the Avs, and no, I'm not surprised that Justus came here and found his game, and obviously with his commitment and his work, that was never in question. He was always a hardworking, quiet, quality pro, and I think the goaltending department here probably has done some really good work as well, and it's allowed him to develop and stretch his wings, so to speak, a little bit. So I think the goaltending here is a strength. I think Saros has been a good goalie for a long time. I think he's a guy that a team can lean on. You got to win games in different ways, right? You got whether you score easier, but you're at the end of the day, the goaltender is the most important position and can cover up and band-aid some things that where on certain nights you're going to need your goalie, and I think Saros has shown that he's a really reliable, trustworthy goaltender in this league. So very fortunate to have both of them.
So that was MacFarland on the goaltending situation there with the Predators, Joe. The conversation we had the other day about Annunen, right? I'm really interested to see, like, as a new GM, right? How do you obviously the lion's share of that's going to be up to the coach, right? Whether that's Andrew Burnett or whether there's another coach in here. If early in the year you're looking at your goaltending situation and Annunen is playing better than Saros is, like, how do you handle that? I mean, that's primarily going to be up to the coach at that point. But I do wonder, like, how the new GM is going to feel about that if it plays out to that scenario that we talked about the other day on the show, where early into the year next year, it's like, wow, I mean, Annunen's just playing better than Saros is. So what do you do?
Yeah. Yeah, and he said all the right things there, but certainly it is very interesting given the history there. But what matters is what happens moving forward, and they're all gonna we're all gonna hear all the right things about Saros, of course, and I mean, I still think that I think it won't just be hearing the right things. I mean, I think that it'll be like he's the guy, and that's how you approach it, despite how things ended and despite some of the other things that have happened that, again, tell you that Annunen is ascending. But I also just expect it to be potentially a quick switch if need be. If they aren't already kind of looking at like maybe a little bit more equitable split of the workload next year because Ananen has earned it, and because maybe that helps Saros. Maybe at this point, if Saros has fewer games and has more rest, maybe that's exactly what he needs to kind of rediscover that higher level of play.
David on the text line says 3 thoughts on the hire that make me excited about leadership. 1, they correctly identified a top target. 2, made it happen despite the Avs wanting to keep him. And 3, very few, if any, media leaks during the extensive process as well. They kept it in-house. This is from David on the text line. Well, on the first point, he is a top target in terms of, available candidates that were out there. We'll see if it's the right target. I mean, that's ultimately what's going to matter here. But I mean, it was pretty clear from Bill Haslam's comments yesterday that the Avs wanted to keep him. And there's been some reporting out of Denver that's come out in the aftermath that the Avs tried a couple of different times to make sure that MacFarland was around. But at the end of the day, they knew that, from the combination of the money that the Predators were putting out there and the promotion that was going on, that they just really had no shot. So, Bill Haslam said all the right things yesterday, and he's right. I mean, Colorado did not have to do that. I mean, Colorado did not have to grant them permission to talk, but it became pretty clear that the Predators, the offer was just too good to refuse. So good on, like I said yesterday in the aftermath, before even more of the details came out, good on Bill Haslam. Like, this is, to me, if you're a Predators fan, a sign that ownership really, really wanted this guy, and they did whatever it took to go out there and get him. And from that aspect of it, we'll see how it works out. But from that aspect of it, I think that's got to excite you as a Predators fan, that they've identified somebody that they wanted, and the financial resources, the commitment to for the term or whatever it is, like all the stops were pulled out from Bill Haslam's point of view to go get this guy.
Yeah, really interesting stuff about the about the back and forth, and really kind of a bidding war. That's if there was any question about the level of, you would already assume the pretty high level of investment to go get a guy like this.
Yep.
But that tells me they probably had to really kind of, dig deep, search through the couch cushions a little bit, make sure they get enough here for him. And that's, I agree, that should be exciting that it wasn't easy, that the Avs, just that the Avs were that motivated to keep him. Obviously they valued him. It's not just like Sakic's errand boy, and also that when they did actually try with, again, quote, significant counter offers to retain him, the Preds won out. And of course, if you're MacFarland, and he got emotional yesterday too, talking about the Avs. So,
sure.
like, obviously it's not like it's easy, been there for a long time, but of course there still has to be a difference beyond like the investment, all that stuff. Just, okay, it's my deal, as opposed to there's still like Sakic still like, at the top of the pyramid. So that gives you the edge, but the who knows? Who knows if maybe not far down the road, Sakic's going to hang it up or something like that. We don't know. I don't know what all the conversations were. Bottom line is, like you said, that to me sweetens the whole situation, that the Preds had to really, really work hard to get him to come here.
So what are the moves that you want to see from Chris MacFarland this offseason? What's on the checklist for you that you're looking for out of Chris MacFarland in the short term? We'll take your thoughts on that. 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Today, the Nashville Sound's taking on the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp. First pitch at 6:05. You can catch all the action on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks, Family Leisure, and Social Cantina. Taking your thoughts at 615-737-1025. We'll have the best and worst things in sports coming up at 6:45, so we will take your best and worst things on our text line. Throwing it out there, Chris MacFarland, introduced as Predators general manager and president of hockey ops yesterday. We'll have Alex Daugherty from the Tennessean with us at 8 o'clock on the program here today, so looking forward to that. What do you want to see from MacFarland in the short term? What are some moves that you want to see this offseason that he begins to execute with the Nashville Predators? We'll take your thoughts on that. Josh from Lebanon says 81 and 74 moved out, so Marchessault and Saros, and bring in a top four defenseman. Loppy on the YouTube chat says, I want to turn the Preds into the Milwaukee Admirals next year. Way too many prospects in their 20s now, and he needs to see what they can do at the NHL level. Bye-bye, Halla, Jost, and Barron. This is from Loppy on the YouTube chat. So, Joe, I turn that question to you. What are you maybe most intrigued by in the short term for Chris MacFarland? What are some moves that maybe you'd like to see this summer?
Well, I mean, if we're talking realistic moves, I think we'd all agree Marchessault is just something that should happen. I guess it's like, well, as presuming that Andrew Burnett's still the coach. I guess if not, maybe that changes. But obviously, he hasn't. I just think that would be a good move to do. Like we've talked about it. Like I like the free agency crop is brutal. Is there another big trade to swing? It'd be fun. It'd be exciting if he did that. But honestly, other than that, and of course, yeah, people are talking about Saros. You're going to talk about Saros. I mean, I'd inquire. I'd have open ears on that. Certainly, if somebody wants to take on that term, 7 years left, right? 7 years left on that sucker.
That is correct.
Yeah, I wouldn't get your hopes up, but I would certainly be open to it. I mean, I'm open. Look, if there are deals of other veterans, you brought up like the Yossi thing yesterday. I mean, I'm keeping an open mind. I'm not opposed to any of it if that's the way he wants to go, and it's truly like, okay, here we go. We're gonna kind of start here at the base and build up, and of course, what's the return on those things? But if he also does very little this offseason, like if it's just like moving Marchessault, that to me would be okay. There you go, and you're seeing what you have next year, and lineup decisions and stuff like that are going to be a big part of like then what you do from there. So I'm not like upset or anything if it's a relatively inactive first offseason.
No, I wouldn't be upset either. Like I think first off, the coach is the first thing you got to figure out. So. Yeah. It's June the 4th. Like we're pretty late in the game right now on the coaching front. And so unless he's got somebody, as we talked about yesterday on the show, that he just absolutely loves, I'd be hesitant to move on from the coach at this point, unless you've got somebody that you just, number one, you can get, and number two, that you think will do a really good job. So I have no idea where Chris MacFarland falls on that table. That's the first thing you got to figure out, though, if you're him. Like I do think moving on from Marchessault this summer is pretty important, and I don't know what that's going to look like. I mean, you're obviously as a return, you're not getting a lot for him. I'm hopeful if you're the Predators, like the goal should be, can you find someone who still believes him in enough where you don't have to retain any salary on it, right? Like that's got to be the goal. I think if you're Chris MacFarland and the Preds. And if you can't do that, do you want to already get into, retaining salary when it comes to the trade? I mean, I think that's the really tricky part of the Marchessault thing is I don't think it's impossible with the cap going up, and it's not like he's got some $8 million cap hit. Like, I don't think it's impossible to find a team out there that, particularly with free agency being as poor as it is, maybe looks at Marchessault and just says, the situation in Nashville wasn't conducive to him, but we still feel like, he can be a really good player. Maybe you can find that somewhere out there. That'd be, I think, a really important thing to do. And look, I'll go back to this. And I know that, from the previous general manager, this kind of felt like a non-starter. But I still think there's going to be a lot of value out there for Ryan O'Reilly entering into his last year of his deal. And to me, you need to do one of two things with him. You either need to extend him and get him under a contract heading into next year beyond this season, or you need to trade him. Like, that's where I am with Ryan O'Reilly. Like, I'm not – it's not like you have to do that. I mean, you can have him coming into this year on an expiring contract and reevaluate in February when the deadline comes around if you want to. But I'd kind of like to see the Predators either go ahead and move him this offseason, where I still think the value could be pretty high, or extend him and get him under contract moving forward here too. Those would be some of the short-term priorities. But there's really, I mean, there's nothing on the table, Joe, that I think is realistic that I would just be absolutely opposed to if you're Chris MacFarland. Like, I'd be listed on a lot of stuff if I'm him.
Yeah, I think that's where they are. We've had in the past some obvious untouchables. And I think now we're in this era of
nobody.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just like, because you can go a lot of different ways. And of course, it all depends on the return. And of course, in most cases, it also depends on those players being cool with it, because they have to approve it, Yeah. But I feel like, barring, I mean, obviously it's like, it depends on where they would be going, right? I mean, I think anybody who's moved out of here, if it is to a legitimate contender right now, like a chance to really win right now, then, I feel like, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like you probably get a green light. You can't just ship people off to anybody. But yeah, I think it's keeping an open mind on all of it for sure. Then it's, and like you said, I mean, with Brunette, I guess it wasn't like it was like this ringing endorsement or anything. No. Remember, I mean, again, Trotz, I go back to like him talking about Hines and everything, and then it was a while, and you're like, okay, so I guess he's okay. And then he wasn't. But that's still a different situation with Trotz and his, connections in the league and all that stuff. There were some people who made sense, including Brunette. I don't know. Right now, it seems like, it's going to be Brunette's team to start the season.
It does. I got a couple thoughts on the text line. JC says the March to Saros contracts are not easy to move, but rip off the Band-Aid, include a prospect or draft picks, and do it for the fastest turnaround or rebuild. Only way not to retain cap is to include a pick, but we have extra picks and prospects. I mean, there is that, Joe. I mean, they got a ton of picks. They've got a ton of prospects. Like, if you want to sweeten a deal to try to get somebody to take a contract, you technically probably have the assets to make that more attainable. It just, how deep into the pool do you want to get on that stuff to get somebody to take a contract? That's the only question with that.
Yeah, like, okay, sure. I mean, maybe you could talk somebody into taking that deal. But I guess I would also say, wouldn't you want a return? I understand, like, the contract, we just talked about the term. I mean, it's difficult. And if not, if you have to do that, is it, with the cap going up, is it the worst thing to have him under contract? I mean, I know
you're talking Saros.
Talking Saros. Again, it was always going to age poorly in the end, right? It was always going to be pain at the end of the deal. I guess to me, it's like, are you that desperate to move him? What if he does have good hockey ahead of him? What if some of these young prospects you have are actually about to start really figuring it out? You have a couple good deals in you, and you have a competitive team in a couple of years, like a legitimately competitive team in a couple of years. Is it so bad to have, him, if he's playing well on your team?
Well, if he's playing well, sure. But
yeah, yeah, for sure. No, I understand. I'm just saying, like, I don't know that I'm going to be all out desperate and like, here, let me give you all this stuff to take him to.
Yeah. No, I don't know that I would be desperate to move on from it. But part of that is also, like, to me, what a lot of this year should be about. And I've been pretty consistent on this. Like, you have a ton of prospects, and they're not all going to hit. Like, you got to figure out who's worth keeping and who you're trying to build around and who you're moving on from, right? Like, I think a perfect example of that is Svechkov this year. Like, Svechkov, we're now 2 general managers removed from the person who took Svechkov in the draft. And last year was not good for him, right? Like, after some moments a couple of years ago that were semi-promising for him, it was a in some ways kind of a disaster of a year from him last year. So does he rebound from that, or is that what he is? Because you got to figure that out pretty quickly, because there's only so many contracts that you're going to have in your organization, right? And you're going to have to figure out and identify who's worth keeping and who's worth moving on from. And I think that's a big part of this year. Well, it's the same thing with, like, if you're going to include these guys in packages to trade away, has Chris MacFarland had enough time to identify, all right, who's worth keeping and who's not when it comes to, like, people you'd be willing to move on from that are young as a part of this?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, of course, he has to lean on his people. He's got a lot of people working for him now who he doesn't know that well, right? And of course, a lot of these guys know each other. They cross paths, right? All that stuff. I mean, it's a community. It's a fraternity, but it's still a difference when it's like, okay, now I have to lean on these people, right, for their insights. Over time, he's going to have his own feel for all of that. But yeah, right now there should be a little bit of trepidation. Like, I need to figure this out or that out, And then, of course, somebody mentioned this, and we'll see, like, are we going to see some turnover in that area over the summer? We're going to see some scouting turnover, things like that. I think people would like to see that, and I understand why.
Alex Daugherty from the Tennessean will be with us at 8 o'clock. We'll get his thoughts on Chris MacFarland and the hiring of Chris MacFarland, his press conference yesterday, all that coming up later in the program. Scott Dochterman from The Athletic will be with us at 7:30 as well. That's coming up. We got the best and worst things in sports coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game.
The best and worst of the sports week. Now on Robby and Rexrode.
On ESPN.
1025 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
This is the worst. You look like you're feeling sorry for yourself. I don't even know
He's one of one. He is him.
This is a Coke bottle. It's not a crystal ball.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
Okay, let's go. It is time for the best and worst things in sports. We'll take your best things, your worst things on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Joe Rexrode, kick us off with your best and worst in the world of sports.
Well, my best, I mean, I got to go with that Myles Garrett trade, man. That is just big-time stuff. Big-time stuff. For one thing, we figured, we knew the A.J. Brown trade was coming. We already were talking about it. It happened. Fine. Then you just blow it out of the water with this Myles Garrett trade. I mean, I just love it. If I'm a Rams fan, if I'm a fan of a team, and your Packers, it didn't work out last year, but this is what I want. At some point, you have to go for it. And you know what? It's a risk, but you have to go for it. The point is to win championships. And so I love how the Rams, Les Snead basically goes about his business with all this stuff. And it's just awesome. We'll see with Cleveland. I mean, I feel better about it on the Cleveland side than some people do, but I just love it for the Rams. It's just and it's great to have huge deals like that in the NFL. That's my best. My worst, the whole softball thing. First of all, Taylor Pennell, all this stuff about Karen Weekly, which appears to be a total lie. And then another thing on top of that is that we don't get any resolution. Texas beats Tennessee, so they're out. We don't get the Tennessee Texas Tech series this week, which would have been, wow, would that have been fun? And then now Texas beats Texas Tech in the opener. Is this gonna be boring Texas again? I mean, it's a great tournament, but that was an unfortunate incident, and then we never got the resolution that we were hoping for. That's my worst in sports.
Ian Safar, your best and worst in the world of sports.
Well, hard to go not Knicks for my best this week. Just
as it should be.
Yep. Haven't lost since the Atlanta series. Brunson, he struggled early on. Same kind of thing game 1 against, I guess it was the Cavs, right? Yeah, a little bit sloppy, a little bit slow, turned it on. So, best in sports, I'm going to go Knicks, still 12 in a row. My worst, I saw that I'm not really on Twitter as much anymore, but or really at all, but I did see it through the work account, this tweet from Barrett Sallee. Do people really believe that the College World Series or college baseball tournament is better than the NCAA tournament? Do people actually think that? Because he said that, and that's just ridiculous. If you actually think that, you're just trolling. So that's my worst in sports.
Good call. That's a good
Spicy
call on your part.
Spicy stuff. I like it. My best thing in sports, listen, I don't like the team that it is taking place for, but the backhand pass from Colton Sissons to set up the game winner for the Vegas Golden Knights in game 1 was pretty freaking sweet, man.
Yeah.
It was a nice pass from Colton Sissons. And look, say what you will. I mean, look, Colton Sissons certainly does not qualify as a superstar player, but I will say about him, he does seem to play his best hockey in the playoffs. Like, there are some people that rise and fall in the playoffs. Sissons, to me, has always kind of been a guy that whatever the best version of him is you're looking for, you're going to get it come playoff time. And he's done it again in these playoffs. He's been really good for Vegas, and a little bit of an offensive flair to him the other night. Backhand, no-look pass right to the middle of the ice to set up the game winner for the Vegas Golden Knights in game 1, Joe Rexrode. So that's my best thing in sports. Look at Colton Sissons balling out there.
He's not afraid, man. He's never afraid.
No, he's not.
That
afraid.
was a very nice pass.
It was very nice.
It was. I watched it like 5 times when it happened. I was like, oh my goodness, it was
nice.
Right on. Perfect stride for hurdle.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. My first reaction when I saw it was like, was that Colton Sissons that made that pass? Really? All right. Good stuff there. My worst thing in sports, the Green Bay Packers. They're cooked. Let me tell you. I mean, you've gone through an offseason where you've basically not really added much to your roster at all. And then Micah Parsons is addressing the media yesterday. and he's talking about his recovery. And I think a lot of Packers fans have been hopeful that, all right, he tore his ACL last year. Hopefully, at some point into training camp, he can get out there, get on the field, and maybe by like week 2 or 3, he's ready to go. Well, that's not happening. He got out there yesterday and addressed the media and was like, yeah, this is a strict 9-month thing that we're doing here from the recovery in terms of like the long-term benefit of my career. So it'll be probably like mid-October before I'm back out there. I'm like, well, that's great. You're just absolutely cooked at this point if you're the Green Bay Packers. So good stuff out there for the Packers.
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of perspective. It's like getting an amazing trading deadline acquisition, Well,
he was like,
there, win enough games, and then boom.
He was like, one of the things he said yesterday was, it's always kind of been about the playoffs coming here anyway. Like, I'd love to play, in the playoffs, and it's about finishing the season. I was like, well, Micah, that's great. That sounds awesome. You have to actually make the playoffs, though. Like, that, you got to get there before you can play in them. And not having him, plus some of the other holes on this roster for the first, month and a half of the season, that might be a huge problem, Joe Rexrode. Huge.
Yeah, you do need to qualify. You do need to. I'm more optimistic about your Packers than apparently you are. So we'll see.
We'll see. We'll find out. I'm surprised you've kind of held it together this long. You've been getting trolled about Michael Jordan for like the entire show so far. So, and you haven't brought it up. I'm stunned by this.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, I don't know who this is, but it's just the whole. Oh yeah, MJ belt to cheeks. I mean, first of all, it's talking about the Knicks. Like when the Knicks didn't do anything. When's the last time the Knicks won a freaking title? 1970?
Sure.
1972?
I think it was 70. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean,
come on.
Jordan used to kill the Knicks. God, did I hate that guy.
Well, so did the Pistons. I mean, I think Ewing got one game off them in the 90s.
No one cares
playoffs.
about that. We're talking about Jordan.
Yeah, we're talking about Jordan.
Well,
we're talking about the now.
But see, if you're not reading this thread now, he's going through the whole Isaiah Thomas was cheeks or whatever. I'm like, well, again, the Pistons were 3-1 in playoff series when Jordan was 25, 26, and 27 years old in the prime of his career. That's the 4th, 5th, and 6th year in the NBA after 3 years at North Carolina with Scottie Pippen on his team the whole time. Good for Jordan and the Bulls for capitalizing on a weak 1990s NBA. Good for them. It was right there for them. They took the layup. Congratulations.
There we go. I knew we'd get there eventually. That's good stuff.
Thank you.
Knew we'd get there eventually. Coming up next, we've talked about the Chris MacFarland hire this hour, Joe. Now that Nick Saban got that behind him and he figured out and helped figure out who the next Predators GM was going to be, he decided to take his talents yesterday in front of a congressional hearing. And boy, there was a lot to unpack there. We will get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Thursday morning, presented by Green Ventures Landscaping. Get thicker grass, better color, and fewer bare spots with turf application. Visit greenventureslandscaping.com. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Scott Dochterman from The Athletic will be with us at 7:30, and he is a supporter of the 2014 playoff idea. So we will get into that with Scott coming up a little bit later this hour. Alex Daugherty from the Tennessean. I am planning on with Scott, Joe, acknowledging to begin this segment that I think this, by my count, is the third time we will have had him on the show, and at least twice we're bringing him on for no other reason than to just yell at him. So he's a good sport, Good sport.
Yeah, he's a good sport. I'm going to try to be nice. I was too mean about Minnesota, Wisconsin being one of the greatest rivalries of all time. Which still seems bizarre to me.
That was a good one. Alex Daugherty with us at 8 o'clock on the program here today as well. Taking your thoughts in the meantime at 615-737-1025. So Nick Saban finished up his work with the Predators, hiring Chris MacFarland. And yesterday, Joe found himself on Capitol Hill in a congressional hearing about the future of college athletics. And he said a lot of things in his time yesterday on Capitol Hill. But basically, here's a quote that I think sums up a lot of it, Joe. And this was from Nick Saban, quote, "Congress does not need to micromanage college athletics. Congress does need to fix the mess in the courts and create a national framework so the people inside college sports can enforce fair rules. Without that legal certainty, every rule becomes another lawsuit, every standard becomes another risk, and the system keeps drifting toward a professional model." So, Joe, there's a lot that Nick Saban talked about yesterday at the congressional hearing in front of the Senate, and a lot of other people in there as well. Just kind of generally, as we get into this, what stands out to you the most about what Nick Saban had to say yesterday on Capitol Hill for the future of college sports?
I mean, this guy retires from coaching, and is he busier than ever? Everybody needs a piece of Nick Saban. Go help us hire this hockey coach over here, save the world over here.
Yeah.
He's just the guy is freaking everywhere. He's doing golf tournaments. He's got to make sure the dealerships ship shape. I'm going to give a little motivational speech. It's interesting, first of all, that it's, the SEC and Big Ten. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing of this week, is that the SEC and the Big Ten put out a joint statement together.
Yeah.
It's like they've sort of been at each other's throats. They're at odds in the playoff system. Go with SEC on that one. Hang in there, Greg Sankey. Sorry for all the bad things I've said about you. But the fact that they put out a joint statement not supporting, this bipartisan bill tells you a couple things. One, I mean, I'm less optimistic than I was initially that this is ever going to, see the light of day. I mean, if it does, it's going to be stripped way down. Now, there are some things on here I would love to see. There's some things on here I'd love to see, but when they immediately come out and oppose it, there's some things in there that just are just going to have to go.
Yeah.
And look, I appreciate Ted Cruz saying that they're trying to avoid the Super League, but the bottom line is it feels like we're heading closer to that now. It feels like we're getting pushed to that. Not with the stupid SEC crap. We're going to go have our own championship. Yeah, okay, yeah, sure. You go do that. That'll be great. You'll destroy everyone. Sure thing. That's just BS. But it's always been the threat. The Big Ten and the SEC join forces. They take some of the bigger brands from the other leagues, and they create this new thing. I mean, it's a concern. But the pooling of rights, and there's some things in there that just, TV rights that the Big Ten and SEC are just not going to be on board with. Let's all pool our rights together, and we're in the same television package as New Mexico State.
Yeah.
Yay. Would it be for the greater good? If the overall money is what people say, maybe it would. But the Big Ten and the SEC, and this is why college sports is where they are, there's separate factions, and we got to win. We need to have more. It's ultimately it gets to selfishness. I find it interesting that in that atmosphere, you have Nick Saban, supporting this and sort of, really kind of going against Greg Sankey in a way, indirectly here with some of the stuff that he said yesterday. I also, Robby, and people bring it up, and it almost gets cliche and old, but we're talking about things being out of control. Nick Saban says if you had if you had the biggest, baddest Ferrari that you could ever have, and it was going 150 miles an hour toward the Grand Canyon, someone needs to tap the brakes. That's all we need to do here. Quote. That's what we all need to do here. End quote. Okay, but no one ever mentions, never mentions that coaches' salaries are also out of control. It's so disingenuous. I think we all agree, some of these things would be good in this bill. The one-time transfer, I like that. I think that's fair. And then if you transfer again, then you sit out. I mean, I think that's fair. That cools off the just absolute constant tampering and free agency and all that stuff. Eligibility of 5 years. No former pros can't play. All this, everybody would agree with this stuff, right? I mean, I think that the Lane Kiffin rules, I don't see how you change that. Schools can't poach a coach from another school during the season. It's just, there's some things in here that I don't think are real life. And again, I think another thing with this, and the SEC and Big Ten said, there's still a lot of this stuff that, that is going to be challenged in court if anything ever goes through. But yeah, we never, you never get to that part of it, to the part of where, again, if you're capping it, then one, how are you capping this? How are you putting a cap on things if the laborers don't participate? I mean, that's just a very fundamental thing here that some people continue to scream. And then why do we, if we're doing that, why do we never address the other costs that are also out of control with coaches making $13 million a year? I mean, no one ever just even mention, acknowledge it. I mean, Nick Saban is out of coaching. I mean, he can, and some people call him a hypocrite with some of the stuff he said, and that's fine. But the bottom line is he's out of coaching now, and he is a smart guy, and I'm glad he's involved in this stuff. But just acknowledge it. And by the way, how about my profession? I mean, we have, position coaches making $1 million, coordinators making $3-4 million. I mean, no one ever talks about that. And so, okay, so the overall picture of this is, let's make sure that all the coaches and the commissioners and the ADs and all that money continues unchecked. And then, the players, the student athletes, the well-being of the student athletes, that's what needs to get capped. I think we've seen enough now to where, it's just not going to hold up, man.
Well, there's that. He talked a lot about NIL stuff yesterday, and Saban has always made it clear that, he's in favor of NIL. He then tried to go back down I'm in favor of NIL as long as it's legitimate endorsements, and now it's turned into pay for play. And it's well, yeah, bud, it has. And
it's out. The genie's out of the bottle, pal.
It's not going back at this point. So I understand his point there, but it's not going back. He threw out the collective numbers at Alabama, where I want to say they started somewhere around 2.7 million. And by the end of it, I mean, I think it said his last year, or the last year he was involved there, it was 24 million or something like that. And he's now you got schools close to $40 million rosters. And he's right about this. I think if the investment level in these rosters continues to go up, and Kirby Smart's talked about this, a lot of people talked about this, eventually you're going to be starting to dole out so much money that it is going to take away from other sports, right? Some of these Olympic sports, if it continues on the current trajectory, are not going to make it. It's not going to be around in the college world. So, I think if you ask fans out there, there are differing degrees as to how much they care about that, because one of the things Saban said yesterday was, if it keeps going this way, you're basically going to have football be successful and basketball be successful, and everything else is going to be club sports. And I do think there are some fans that say, great, I don't care about that. That's fine. That's all I care about anyway. But I do think that's a huge concern when it comes to the way that things are currently heading right now.
Yeah, it's the thing that people don't talk about enough when we talk about all these things. And you have to really think about it. And I heard Ted Cruz talk about this on an interview. And Yeah, look, we've talked about it before, but I agree in terms of, look, part of the reason the NCAA has had nonprofit status is because of those opportunities. And a big part of that is because those programs at all these schools, which involve scholarships, that feeds a ton of our Olympic participation.
Yeah.
So other people, you can call them non-revenue sports, but also Olympic sports. A lot of them are Olympic sports. And we have, look, all over the country in a lot of different sports, the funding is there, the resources, the facilities, the training, the coaching. Everybody's compensated well enough to where these sport and again the scholarships. It's a huge deal. Even a lot of them are partial scholarship sports, things like that. But that is like that. Other countries don't have college sports like we do. They're all club sports. It's professionals, and then they have a lot more government funded things to develop their Olympic athletes. And we have the USOC, but it has been sort of like the NFL. The NFL has benefited forever from having this free farm system. They just get to pluck these college players, get to watch them play for 3 years, and then pluck them and draft them. And in the same way, the United States has had a tremendous system of these athletes being developed at the college level by other people, and then you can scout from there, and it's been very successful. And I think Ted Cruz said something like, I don't want like China and Russia to have all the gold medals. That sounds a little bit doomsday, but it is something to consider. And if this is going to go that way, where it's like, okay, football and basketball, they're for profit. There's a union. It's pro sports, like Saban, dude, we're not going back. It's pay for play. Let's get past that. Okay. It's pay for play. The question is what are the mechanisms? Is there any enforcement of rules and all that stuff? But if you're going to go that way, then who's taking on the money to develop these athletes for our Olympic teams?
It's a great question. 615-737-1025. Our phone number. We'll take more of your thoughts on Nick Saban and the congressional hearing yesterday. What do you think of the idea of the Big Ten and the SEC potentially joining forces? What does that look like? We'll get into all that. Scott Dochterman coming up at 7:30. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Scott Dochterman from The Athletic coming up here in just a few minutes at 7:30. We will get into all things college football and the 2014 potential college football playoff with him. So looking forward to that. Our football off-season coverage brought to you by Tennessee Brew Works. Finely tuned craft beer for finely tuned fans. Tennessee Brew Works, official craft beer of off-season coverage here on 102.5 The Game. Yeah, this Big Ten SEC joint statement, which first off, I mean, how much pain do you think behind the scenes there was between like Sankey and Petiti of having to put together a joint statement? Like, you know that they really don't like something if they're like putting something out together based on everything that's happened with them over the last couple of years here. So there's that. You know, this Super League thing, it's not the first time this has been brought up, and people have talked about the idea of like eventually the Big Ten and the SEC just breaking away and doing their own thing here, and how much of a just the total knife to the back of traditional college sports that would be at that point. Like, do you think that's anywhere on the radar of realism right now? Or even with all the crap that's been flying around out there, do Petiti and Sankey in particular still have the good enough sense to realize what that would mean for the rest of the country, do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I have no – I understand that we're coming off a week in which Greg Sankey's like, well, the metrics say that we're actually the best conference by far. I mean, I've seen the metrics. Okay, Greg. I mean, I realize we're coming off that week, but like at least Sankey had like it generally comes off as an intelligent person and has done a lot of winning for the SEC. Petiti, this dude is just an absolute. I have no idea. Like this guy is like he needs to go like devise some sort of like Shark Tank show somewhere. I mean, I don't think he has any concept whatsoever or any care, and this is why you don't. I mean, the Big Ten has hired back-to-back Kevin Warren, who, by the way, asked Bears fans about Kevin Warren now that he left, and now Tony Petiti. I don't understand how you know what? Let's go get some TV exec to be our league commissioner. I mean, it should like these people. Again, there's plenty of criticisms of Greg Sankey that are fair. He's a guy who grew up in college sports at various spots. He went to in administrations, athletic administrations. He was with the SEC under Mike Slav. I mean, like that makes sense that he would be your commissioner. Going to get some goofball who like helped MLB, devise ridiculous postseason to be your commissioner it is just insane to me. And it just goes to show you like some of these presidents, because ultimately the presidents make the call, but they make bad calls. And then they just basically let their commissioners do whatever they want, and say, yeah, we'll just take your word for it. So I don't think that Tony Petiti gives an absolute rip whatsoever about any of this stuff. Tradition. I mean, and there is a regional aspect to this. I mean, again, PK is from New Jersey. Like, of all the areas of this country that don't give a crap about college sports, the Northeast is number one, and that's where he's from. And it's the disaster that he's their commissioner. So no, he doesn't care. He is the definition of a suit who is here right now to make his money, and then he'll cash his chips in. Good luck. I don't think that's Sankey, but the problem is Sankey ultimately he's the SEC commissioner. He still views it from the silo. And he should be. He's the most powerful person in college athletics, and he needs to be more concerned about the greater good. And I'm not saying he's not concerned. I don't necessarily think that Greg Sankey's eager for the Super League thing to happen. But if it's not going to happen, if it's going to be stopped, just like this 2014 playoff, I mean, he's a big part of that. Like Greg Sankey is. He needs to be the cooler head that prevails.
Yeah, I mean. The thing I keep coming back to in all these conversations is I guess it's not unlike anything else in life, but the greed just in terms of like, you've got to have every last possible thing go your way. If you're one of these conference commissioners or you're one of these presidents, and the inability to see the bigger picture at large for the overall health of your sport and the overall health of your of your product is amazing to me. And look, you could throw that into the college football playoff discussion, but you could throw it into this too. Like, common sense would suggest to me that it should take you about 5 seconds if you're one of these people to look around and say, hey, yeah, cutting off parts of the country from really enjoying our sport and totally ruining the fabric of a tradition that's existed for over 100 years at this point is probably not the smartest thing to do. And yet I find myself legitimately worried, Joe, that we're eventually going to get there, because everything else that's happened in college athletics over the past 5 to 10 years would suggest to me that we probably are going to get there at some point, because these people don't care about that and they don't have enough common sense to realize these things from time to time. I mean, that's how we end up with conferences where you've got freaking Stanford going out to Miami to play. Like, it's the dumbest thing on the earth. Like, but to throw that out there as an idea in like 2010, people would say you're insane. Like, oh yeah, we got Cal playing in the ACC. California is on the Atlantic Coast Conference. It's just the dumbest thing on the earth. And yet here we are, which is why I'm scared to death that, this time 10, 15 years from now, it is going to be the Big Ten and the SEC, and they're going to have these conferences with, 35 teams apiece in them, and there will be playing college football between the Big Ten and the SEC.
Yeah. Yeah. Or whatever, some new thing. I agree. And yeah, for as much, right around that time, by the way, is when, the Ed O'Bannon thing was starting to cook and all that stuff. And I mean, I remember being at a Big Ten meetings with Jim Delaney, and I mean, like, the absolute disdain he had for the idea of a single penny going to a college athlete. Again, Jim Delaney was always the smartest guy in the room, but it was this was an absolute non-starter, and that's why we're where we are now. Again, is it any different if they had a different approach? I don't know, but also you hit on something that I think people underrate in all this, which is the greed of realignment. That is totally independent from the NIL stuff and the transfer portal stuff. That is the most destructive thing about all of this. And that is directed by these people in charge who, rather than being caretakers of an incredible sport, are, again, searching for the next dollar, trying to win, trying to make sure we win. Hey, people celebrated Greg Sankey when he went and got Texas and Oklahoma, but again, he's part of the problem too. Then you get into like some of the ridiculous stuff that you see from these other leagues trying to counter that. And again, even the Big Ten going out and just destroying the Pac-12. So I don't think that aspect of it gets enough credit for being the worst of all of this. And like, I'm worried too. I've kind of been sort of hopeful, like, there's enough people who get that when you rule out swaths of the country, ultimately your product eventually is going to suffer for it. But again, that's the problem, is the short term, and you see it in a lot of corporations. Can we get that stock price up a little bit here? 10 years down the road, I don't care. Can I get the stock price up now? That's the mindset.
Scott Dochterman from The Athletic will be with us coming up next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game, talking some college football. And to help us do that, we head to our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Scott Dochterman to the program from The Athletic. Scott, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great, guys. How's it going today in Nashville?
Doing awesome, man. Appreciate you taking time to be with us. Let me go ahead and say this. We were talking about this earlier in the show. Scott, if my recollection is correct, I believe this is like the third time we've had you on the program. And I think Joe's yelled at you every time. So how does it feel to come on and have just such an angry coworker at The Athletic?
I know. I need to turn them in. HR is getting a letter here probably after today. You know, the first time was we were arguing over rivalries, Minnesota, Wisconsin specifically. And I think the second time might have been basketball rivalries or something. But yeah, so, and I know this one will probably be even more heated. So I'm always, but we go way back to having shots of Jameson at the Final Four when he was covering Michigan State and I was covering Iowa at the time, even though Iowa.
Oh my gosh. Making me think of JMO shots now. No, actually, I beat you to it. I've already put a little complaint in the complaint box about your 2014 endorsement. So you better get to HR fast, buddy. Now, I will not yell at you. I want you to, in a thumbnail way, and you wrote a really compelling piece this week about the 2014 playoff, which I absolutely still hate. But yeah, I thought you did a great job of breaking down some of the potential benefits. So in a thumbnail, quick endorsement for people who aren't sure or against it, how would you endorse the 2014 playoff?
You know, Joe, when we were growing up watching college football, going to a bowl game was the epitome of a season. Everybody went to one bowl game. And if you're in the Big Ten, it was about going to the Rose Bowl. If it was the SEC country, it was about going to the Sugar Bowl. And it was about winning the national championship. There were improvements made to the bowl system that allowed the number one matchup to take place. As we saw, good teams got left out, like Auburn in 2004. And LSU in 2000, or USC, I guess it was, in 2003. So we ended up with a 4-team playoff, which was very exclusive. It was relying upon the regular season, and regular season excellence was rewarded with an opportunity to win a national title. In the interim, over the last 12 years, we've seen rampant realignment, expansion, where we don't even know who's good in what leagues half the time, because somebody may have a 6-2 or 6-3 record depending on your league, and it could be as good or worse or better than somebody that's 7-2 or 8-1. And with these monster supersized conferences, it's really had us questioning what is the value of a regular season, because teams don't play one another. For instance, Ohio State this year plays the teams that they play won 51 games last year in Big Ten play, and the teams that Wisconsin plays won 28 games in Big Ten play last year. So there's such a disparity in the regular season. It's hard to determine what is regular season excellence. So therefore, we have expanded the playoff to 12, but as we have witnessed, that bowl games are rapidly deteriorating in value. I mean, they're still interesting. We still watch them. Some people still travel to them. But the difference between going to a playoff versus going to a bowl game is so wide. It's something that's unprecedented. And we see opt-outs. We see teams opting out now. So in order to establish that going to the playoff is not just exclusive based on who you play during the regular season, that a larger playoff, to me, has more merit to determine not only a national championship, but also the value of a good season across the board.
So to that point, Scott, and just for I guess, just being open, like you're talking to somebody here in me that was against playoff expansion from 4, and Joe and I yelled about that a lot. And one of the things we talked about at the time was, and one of my points has always been, like, it's never going to be enough for these people. Like, they're always going to want to expand because somebody's always going to get left out. And here we are in pretty short order. We've gone from a 4-team playoff to at least the idea, and in some people's opinion, maybe the impending reality of a 24-team playoff coming up at some point. So I guess I'll ask you the same question that I've asked, I think, every time that this sort of idea has come up. Is that it? Like, does it stop at 24? Or when people start getting left out of the 24-team playoff, does the whining for continual expansion that we've seen from some of these ADs continue to take place, even if this thing gets to 24?
Well, I'm sure it will. I do think that something needs to be put in place because I'm not necessarily in favor of anything larger than 24. I don't think it should go, well, in 5 years, let's go to 32. And then after that, 48 and make it like, high school playoffs where, you got 14 districts and 2 of them qualify for the postseason. And then you have at-large bids. I don't think that should happen at all. I mean, this is still would be the most exclusive postseason club in major American sports because only 17% of the teams would actually qualify for the championship tournament. So what should happen is if it goes to 24, that there needs to be, it can't just be a handshake agreement between the SEC and Big Ten commissioners to, it has to be these 2 guys only to solve it because who knows what Tony Petitti might want to do or, eventually Greg Sankey's replacement, let's just have everybody join. No, that needs to be something in place where, maybe not unanimous, but 90% of the schools themselves have to vote for it and then, go through multiple steps. And so I would prefer it to be, if it's 24 teams, lock that in place for, 2 decades. So this is the exclusive tournament. This is everything we want. And so, as far as bracket creep goes, this is something that Jim Delaney saw from day one and argued against. But here we are, and we talk about the playoff. We don't talk about the Bulls anymore, and I think that's part of the reason why this is starting to become a more valuable venture.
Hey, it's funny you bring up Jim Delaney. I was just talking about him. In fact, I think I remember you and I were both in that room with him one day. Didn't you try to ask a question and he just stared at you and then walked out of the room? I think that happened. And also on the same day, Scott, didn't he? I mean, I at some point was like the dismissal of the idea that student athletes could even get more cream cheese on their bagels at that point, 15 years ago, was was just absolutely offensive to him. But regardless, that's a sidetrack. Okay, so first of all, my dream here is that because I like the 12. You talk about 2 decades. I want that for this. I mean, I think I want this to stay, and my dream is that every year we argue about this, and then they just deadlock, and we just keep it going. But if this is inevitable, there are 2 things about the 24 that really bother me because there's a lot of hypotheticals. I mean, we've gone back and forth in writing about the Michigan, Ohio State, some of these big games that become irrelevant late. But 2 things that really bother me. One is if you're a 9 seed in the 2014 playoff, which is pretty good. I mean, I think last year we did see there were some teams left out that were really good. The talent has spread out some. If you're the 9 seed in a 2014 playoff, you have to win 5 games to win a national championship. NFL guys are looking at that and saying, good God, 5 games? I mean, that to me is absurd. And then also, Scott, I don't think every time this comes up, I want to scream about it. And I hear what you're saying about Bulls, they are just being devalued, and that's just. And I hear your point about this thing that used to be everybody opting out, now it's a playoff game. There's more interest, but if you really want to incentivize teams and have more things at stake, then let's make it like the NFL playoffs and let's have home field. You're right. There's more home field with this in the early rounds. I can't believe we're still going to ask fans to go travel to a quarter, travel to a semi, travel to a neutral site for a championship game because we have to include the Bulls. It just drives me crazy. If you take that out and it's this is the NFL where it's it matters to get that home field for the huge games. You get to play whoever you're a top seed. You get the home game to try to get the championship game. Okay, I like it a little bit better. Is there any chance of that ever happening?
Absolutely. I mean, we went from when it comes to the extra rounds for the playoffs, that the first 2 rounds will be on campus, which means there'll be 16 on-campus games. And take that in perspective, Joe, this year coming up, there are 34 games between power conference teams on campus. And then you add in the potential for 16, probably more like 15, because you'll have a group of 5 team in there, maybe 2. But, so you're talking almost, half that number, 50% of that number will be on campus games. So I would anticipate that once people get a flavor for it. I mean, we were in the press box together for Indiana and Notre Dame 2 years ago, and that was such an incredible vibe being at Notre Dame. No offense to the good people at the Citrus Bowl, but I really was glad that game was at Notre Dame and not in Orlando. And I think once they get a flavor for that and you start to see that fans, and fans do get a flavor for that. I was at the Ohio State Tennessee game 2 years ago, and just the fact that Vols had never been at Ohio Stadium, and it was such a great atmosphere because of that, because they were able to figure out a way to get all those tickets. And I think I could envision a case where it goes all the way to the quarterfinals. Now, that maybe the semifinals and championship games should be neutral. I'm okay with that, but I agree, because we have asked, and this is another reason why I'm in favor of an expanded playoff, is we've asked fans and donors to just start anteing up over the last 5 or 6 years for NIL, to make sure that to pay for your coaches, to do all the things we've asked them to do, or the sport has, and also ante up for these players year after year, millions of dollars. And then for what? You may have the toughest schedule in the SEC. You go 9-3 and you're the 13th team. And therefore, have fun at the Citrus Bowl. And then half your players decide, you know what, I'm going to go in the portal, or I'm going to opt out and wait for the NFL. Versus a playoff, they're going to be all ecstatic about it. And then, my other factor is the regular season, which I believe and always have believed that the college football regular season is the best in sports. And when I looked at this, probably mostly was the last 3 weeks of the regular season last year, 35 power conference teams had 3 losses or less. And our friend Chris Vanini on staff, he does his 136. I think this year will be like 137, ranking all the FBS teams. And he out of his list, the top 9 and 12 qualified for the playoff. And then he had the 2 group of 5 teams. And then if you bend it back to 16, his top 14 would have gotten in. That means that, 60% of those teams would not have even had a chance. They couldn't have won their way up to get into the playoff in the most important time of the year. The last 3 weeks of the regular season, those games were basically bowl positioning. And I think right now that if you're getting to the regular season and then in case last year, 10 games would have directly impacted the playoff field on the final weekend of the year. And I think that would have been very exciting. It would have added more to the regular season than taken away. Maybe we don't have the punitive factor, but I think the punitive factor has been removed. Look at 2 years ago. When Ohio State lost to Michigan, it didn't impact their opportunity to go to the playoffs. In fact, they won the national championship. So I would say that if we look at Ohio State-Michigan, it's actually got more value, because if you take away the championship game, for the first time in 20 years, those teams could play for the actual Big Ten championship on the game's final season game. So I think that it has better impact on the regular season than actually detracts from it.
Well, Scott, we really appreciate your time. I thought Rexrode handled himself very nicely in this particular interview here, this particular exchange. I hope you did as well, and I hope you'll come back with us soon here on the program.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's good to talk to you guys, and thanks for having me on.
We love you, Scott.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Scott Dochterman, our guest here on the program. We'll have the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up next. Alex Daugherty from the Tennessean coming up at 8 o'clock. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
Why does it take me 14 minutes to pee?
Because I'm an old man and all the ligaments and everything are like weak.
So listen, I was in the gym yesterday, okay?
I think I might have torn my PCL doing leg curls.
I feel like ass.
The biggest ass in town.
I was really feeling old and tired yesterday as I did those 40-pound curls.
Let's swap our sweat now.
It's more like a golden shower.
And I really went hard yesterday, and I think I blew out my shoulder.
You guys, just all of you are so damn soft.
If so, does this cause like a performance issue?
This is a low T alert.
Keep it limber.
Does anyone else out there have this issue? Let's get back to my feet.
Well, I'm about ready to die now.
You might want.
It is time for the Rex Rant, brought to you by Rapid Response Generators, power when it matters most, and served by the Wine Cellar in Hendersonville. Joe, the floor is yours.
What a collage of physical ailments. Really brings my mortality into focus there. Thank you, Ian.
You're welcome.
I got to wear my low T Titans shirt here one of these days. I found it the other day. I'm like, oh, I haven't worn my low T Titans shirt in a while. So actually, I mean, I have something to say, but Robby, I know that you were very kind and just held back and were very nice to Scott. Would you like to scream now? Do you need to like let out a loud blood-curdling scream about the idea of 24 teams?
I mean, yes, the idea of 24 teams physically sickens me. I guess the one thing he's talking about there that I just absolutely cannot get on board with, and that's the idea that somehow this makes the regular season better. Like to me, one of the things he talked about there, the punitive aspect of college football, I think has been lost here to a certain degree, and I hate it. I mean, it's kind of my point. Like, I think, the Ohio State part of this is a good example. Yeah, they went and won the national championship, but, I mean, there are a lot of years where if they lost that Michigan game, they'd have been out, and I'm cool with that. Like, I want that to matter. Like, the regular – there's not an argument anybody's going to be able to make to me that I've heard yet that makes me convinced that this is somehow going to enhance the regular season. This is certainly, I think the bad for the regular season way outweighs the good.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you. So, but Scott did a good job making his case.
He did.
And people feel it. And look, I mean, my whole thing is if it's inevitable, and I mean, I guess in my mind, I thought, you know what, this is going to end up at 16 and that's the right number. And as Tony Petitti and others have pointed out, 16, that doesn't take care of the issue of, getting rid of your conference championship game in terms of the funding. But again, I mean, to me, it's like, okay, but there's got to be something more than just the short-term money aspect of everything, So I figured it would end up at 16. It's stunning to me that so many people want to do the 24. I hope it doesn't happen. If it does, I mean, at least like the bowl games as semifinals and quarterfinals is just idiotic. And again, if you want to incentivize things and incentivize home field like throughout the playoffs, just like the NFL, if that's what you're going to do. But today, really quickly now, I'd like to bring your attention to E. Gordon G. People may remember E. Gordon G. He was the chancellor of Vanderbilt University. Okay. And then he was at Ohio State. And this guy has famously just he had to retire from Ohio State in 2013 because he said so many ridiculous things like, yeah, you got to watch those Catholic priests on Thursdays and Fridays. And, ripping Brett Bielema. He was, fired Jim Tressel. He's going to fire me. And then like 2 months later, Tressel resigned under pressure. And it just like, he famously has just said, at one time he's like, yeah, putting all these, trying to put all these university things. It's like, boats shooting at each other like the Polish army or something. Like, oh, Gordon G just said something else offensive to somebody. Boy. So anyway, I mean, he's quite a character. He went from Vanderbilt to Ohio State. He resigned there. Then he went to West Virginia. I guess he retired as West Virginia's president like a year ago. I didn't realize that. But he shows up yesterday on Capitol Hill. And it's like, E. Gordon G, what's up, dude? What kind of crazy stuff are you going to say today? I mean, you don't even have a job, right? Like, what kind of crazy stuff might come out of that mouth today? It's like Pantangeli at the hearings and the Senate hearings in Godfather 2. Like, what is he going to say? So here's what he said. Quote. Boy, it's a long quote. Quote. Presidents and chancellors are not free from blame for this crisis. We agreed to outrageous salary contracts, reduced the academic mission at the core of being a student athlete, and abrogated too much power to athletic directors and conference commissioners. The end result is that we now have an unsustainable system which will destroy American college athletics unless we take bold steps. The NCAA and the conference is lost in the courts because we failed to allow student athletes to function as true students with great talents who earned the right to monetize their talents, end quote. And I was like, that is the greatest quote E. Gordon G has ever said. Now, it doesn't solve anything, but good for you, E. Gordon G, coming out and speaking some truth. Other people have said similar things. But I did appreciate him coming out, and yeah, he is in support of the bill. And as we said, there's some things about the bill that are really good. There's some things about the bill that have no chance. I don't have a lot of optimism if the Big Ten and SEC are putting out statements about the bill, not supporting the bill, but good for E. Gordon G to come out and basically, I think, take some of the blame because he's part of the whole problem previously, but at least he acknowledged it. I'd like to see some other people do the same.
I like it. Way to go, E. Gordon G on the show here today. Did not expect him to come up.
You never know.
You never know.
I'm looking at this dude. He's like 82. He's doing great, man. He's out there just spitting facts with that bow tie. And by the way, another one of the scandals at Ohio State is that he apparently spent $64,000 on bow ties.
What? Jeez.
Gotta love E. Gordon G.
Good grief. Alex Dougherty from the Tennessean will be with us coming up next. We'll get his thoughts on the Chris MacFarland hire by the Preds. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Thursday morning. Chris MacFarland, hired by the Nashville Predators. He was introduced yesterday at Bridgestone Arena at his introductory press conference. And to help us talk more about that, we head to our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in our friend Alex Dougherty to the program, who covers the Nashville Predators for the Tennessean. Alex, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing so well. I'm just so thankful that this is all over. We've had a long 4 months, and we finally got a general manager in place, and I don't have to worry about waking up every day to new rumors about some guy I've never heard of being involved in the search. So here we go. We're back, baby.
It's quite a time for you now that this is all taking place here. So let's just start there. Chris MacFarland has his introductory press conference yesterday. I mean, he didn't really say a ton in terms of, what the immediate plan is going to be with a lot of different things, from the coaching staff to the roster. But if you had to identify maybe, a couple of different things that really stood out to you the most about Chris MacFarland yesterday, what would those be?
Well, okay, so it was pretty clear, like the first, 5-8 minutes of the whole thing was a very emotional outpouring from him, where he listed off almost everyone in the Colorado Avalanche organization that he ever came in contact with, talked about his family, of course, too, but everything from Joe Sakic to, the assistant general managers he worked with, to the staff there. I mean, it was a very it was a very interesting way to start. He was extremely. I thought he was very methodical in how he did it, and he knew what he wanted to do. And I think that right there tells you a lot. He came out with a notebook there, kind of listing off, and he had prepared remarks. He had prepared everything he wanted to talk about. I think that shows you that he was ready for the moment. He knew it was going to be difficult. He prepared himself for that. Didn't shy away from the emotions. He was definitely willing to do that, and all of that just shows you like kind of who he is, right? We learned in the first 10 minutes kind of who Chris MacFarland is as a person, and I think that's important. The other things that we learned there were, obviously we didn't learn a lot about what kind of general manager he's going to be, but I actually found the more fascinating thing to be, getting some final answers on what it took to get him here. And Bill Haslam, referenced in his main remarks about, the Avalanche didn't let him go quietly, and that there was a back and forth there. I was able to confirm with him later that there were significant counteroffers from the Avalanche to keep MacFarland in Colorado in the form of contract extensions. The one question I had, and the one thing that we didn't know, and frankly, because I didn't know how this worked with executive contracts, is, was there a buyout? Well, there wasn't. So they did not have to buy him out of that contract. The Avalanche did the right thing. That to me, it's kind of curious, especially in the world we're in now, where Vegas is just not letting people talk to that coach, and Colorado's doing the opposite and saying, you know what, you can have our potential award-winning general manager because it's the right thing to do. So that whole thing about it was just very fascinating. And we talk about the comments he had about the players and the current situation for Nashville, but those are the two takeaways. The win that this was for the Predators to steal him away from a Central Division rival, and what kind of person he is, talking a lot about what it took to get him to this point in his career, the amount of work it took from others, the players. I just thought those are the two main things that stood out to me.
Yeah, I agree, Alex. I mean, obviously Vegas is just, they're ruthless on another level, working out pretty well for them overall, I'd say. But
yeah.
But my eyes have been open a little bit on that too. I've always kind of looked at this like, if you have if someone in your front office has an opportunity, or a coach has an opportunity to move up, it's just it's the natural thing, of course. But I thought it was really interesting to hear that Colorado tried to keep him, that this was essentially a bidding war. I mean, I would not have guessed that. So from what you've been able to gather, go ahead.
Just to clarify one thing, I think the fact that it was a promotion made it. That was the ending. That was the final nail. The fact that it was going to be a promotion for him was going to make it very hard for Colorado to say, we can't let you talk to him, right? So like, and the money is one thing, and the contract is another. But like, I do think that the promotion side of it is very important.
Yeah, no question. So the question I have is, because look, I look at this outside looking in, it's like, okay, he's the number 2, and yeah, he had the GM title, but he's the number 2. The number 2 in Colorado. Sakic still has the final say on things, and now he's the number 1 here. How and certainly, obviously, he got a promotion there. He got more responsibilities. How much credit? I know you don't have an exact pinpoint answer on this, but how much credit do you think he deserves for their success and for running things to a large extent there?
Yeah, that's the real the real chestnut, trying to figure out what that is. How responsible was he? So I've done some, I asked him that essentially the at the end of the press conference there about, for example, in 2017 when they traded Matt Duchene, how involved was he in that when he was just the assistant, right? And then this past year, when they traded Mikko Rantanen to Carolina and got Martin Necas, how involved he was the GM, but how involved was Joe Sakic in that? Because he's the head honcho, right? So it's really tricky. I will say that everything that you read about this particular combination with MacFarland as GM in Colorado and Sakic as president of hockey ops, and then pretty much ever since MacFarland got there in 2015, they're almost mentioned in tandem every time. It's like Sakic, maybe less when Sakic was the GM, but like definitely when MacFarland is doing things. Like there's a lot of combined. MacFarland did this along with Sakic. Sakic did this along with MacFarland. I even went back and looked at the when the Avalanche promoted him to general manager. The story that Peter Baugh with The Athletic, which I believe Joe writes for, if I've been told correctly,
yes.
Basically said that this was coming for a long time, and they did this to keep him in Colorado. Like they knew that he was going to be a guy that everyone was going to want, and they did it to keep him in Colorado. So I think that it shows you like the level of like reputation that he had in the league. And so I think he was probably a big part of building that team from the bottom in 2017 to the cup in 2022. And there's just so many things that you like about what they did. I mean, it's hard. Obviously he had nothing to do with them drafting Nathan McKinnon, but that was a number 1 overall pick. It's not like you would have told them to do anything else. But even like going back to like the contracts that he helped hand out, that signing McKinnon to an 8-year deal, Devin Taves, the Cale Makar contract, getting Martin Necas signed to an 8-year deal, like all of those contracts are deserved and they paid off immediately. Like when was the last time that happened for the Predators, where they signed a big contract and immediately you were like, okay, this was worth it because look at what this player is doing immediately. I mean, I don't think that's happened in a long time. Maybe Shea Weber, but even then that was a different situation. Like it just has not happened where there's a contract that it's a big number and it immediately pays off. So like, that's another thing that I think is part of this is the guy knows when to pay money to players that deserve it and doesn't lock you into contracts that the Predators, like the ones the Predators currently have.
What do you think this means for Andrew Brunette and the coaching staff with MacFarland coming in, especially this late in the game coming in?
I can't see a situation in which Andrew Brunette, I'm getting tied up in my words here. I think Andrew Brunette will be the coach this coming season. How long will he be the coach? If it doesn't get off to a good start, will they move on? Maybe they move on then, but two things. One, who else is out there that you're going to get right now? I mean, all the coaches are kind of already in jobs. It looks like Bruce Cassidy, once he's able to talk to Edmonton, will probably go there. It sounds like Knobloch or DJ Smith in LA, and then Carl in Toronto, maybe going to happen. There's no one else there. I mean, who you're going to fire Brunette and what? Go hire someone that no one's that is untrusted or
Lavi's
unproven.
out there, buddy.
Oh
He's
yeah, there you go, Peter Lavi.
with the Leafs.
Bring him back. That would be fun. But there's no big guy that's just sitting out there right now. And the other thing is, I know I'm not not everyone agrees with me here, but I do think that Brunette's done enough, even in 2 consecutive seasons not making the playoffs, to show that he's a good coach. He's shown the power play, which he's in charge of, has shown a big improvement. The penalty kill is improved as well, despite losing some coaches there. You've seen improvement from Luke Evangelista, from Matthew Wood, and you saw Ryan O'Reilly's career just come back, all of a sudden. And I think there's enough there. We know that he hasn't lost the room or anything. I mean, he's definitely still a coach that the players appreciate. The one thing that you're worried about is Chris MacFarland has 0 ties with this guy. He could fire him tomorrow and never even be in the same room with him, right? So there's that. But I just don't think that he's in any danger right now. I think there's enough for Brunette to keep him around, and we'll see what MacFarland really likes to do with his coaches. I mean, he's never. I don't know how much in charge he was with hiring and firing coaches or scouts or anything over there. That's one thing we don't know, but. When it comes to the roster, I think the guy is just a salary cap wizard. He's navigated some tricky situations before for Nashville. That is exactly what you need right now.
So I know, obviously, MacFarland's not telling anybody anything he's doing yesterday. There was some good questions to try to get at how he views this roster and everything. But do you think we'll see significant deals, moves from him this summer, Alex? And if so, what would maybe be the top 2 or 3 that you could see happening?
Yeah, I think there's got to be at least one. Although we have to keep in mind that the salary cap situation is a little different, where there's like this the floor was increased, and you can't move too much because then you got to sign players again. So I do think that but I think what makes more sense is to move out players that just don't really fit anymore. And Jonathan Marchessault is at the top of that list, and I think he would be willing to waive his clause at this point to move elsewhere, and I think that's the number one. Outside of that, I can't see anything. I think he'll probably let the free agents walk, although he did draft Justin Barron, so maybe he still likes that guy, and maybe they do qualify him now. I would be surprised if that happens, but. I don't see any major moves. I think the one thing that stood out to me yesterday was a couple things in our side conversations with him is he talked a lot about getting the right age group to sort of build together. He didn't really indicate what age group that was, but it's probably a younger age group. And obviously that's not what the Predators have right now. So I think letting these situations with Forsberg, Stamkos, Marchessault, O'Reilly kind of play out right now, but the trade deadline next year, boy, that could be where you see a lot of movement, right? Because if this team is not good, if they're not in the hunt for the playoffs, you could see a lot of guys, especially like O'Reilly. I mean, there's no way he's going to hold to that, hidden no trade clause with O'Reilly, right? Like he has no ties to that. He's going to move O'Reilly if he needs to, maybe even this summer. But I don't. So to answer your question, Joe, I don't see any major moves this summer except for maybe like one to get Marchessault a new home, and then he wants to see kind of what this team looks like when you add some younger players, like if Brady Martin comes back and he's in the mix. He mentioned Vitaly Pinchuk, the guy they signed from Belarus. He mentioned him by name. What does Matthew Wood look like in his second full year? Those are all things that are important, but. This next season, especially trade deadline is going to be interesting because he's probably going to say, you know what, I've seen enough of these guys. Let's move these out and get this reset started.
It'll be very fascinating to see how he handles that part of it. Alex, thank you, sir. We appreciate you taking time to be with us this morning, as always, and get you some rest now that this issue is now behind us.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yep, I'm going to go back to bed right now, actually.
There we go.
Yeah, but what about the 2014 playoff though? I need your attention on this now, Alex.
Go figure out college football for us.
Yeah.
The college football thing.
Nap.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you.
Sorry, not the 2014 Stanley Cup playoffs. I'm sorry.
No, I don't care, and honestly, you can handle that, Joe. You're the professional in that realm. It sounds like an absolute headache and sounds like a terrible idea, but you know what? You all enjoy that.
There we go.
All right.
Thank you.
That's fine.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Alex.
Joe, you want to really send me over the edge? Do a 24-team Stanley Cup playoff. That'll be enough to make me maybe jump out of this window over here. So
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Gary probably has that cooking up in his head right now.
I'm sure he does. It'd be awesome. We'll react to what Alex had to say. Take your thoughts on Chris MacFarland coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Robby and Rexrode presented by Green Ventures Landscaping, outdoor patios, landscaping design, lawn maintenance, and more. Visit greenventureslandscaping.com. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Appreciate Alex Dougherty from the Tennessean for being with us in the last segment there. Taking your thoughts on Chris MacFarland and his introductory press conference as Preds GM and president of hockey operations. Joe, he didn't elaborate much yesterday in terms of like what the immediate plan is going to be with the roster or with the coaching staff. I mean, he did acknowledge that he's going to talk with Andrew Brunette and the coaching staff. It is June the 4th, as we've discussed, so you have to keep that in mind. Like, it's not like this is right after the regular season ending and you're changing the coach and then going on a search. I mean, you're a couple of weeks away from the draft, and then free agency is less than a month away. So you've got a lot of things happening in a pretty short amount of time here if you're Chris MacFarland. So how does that impact Andrew Brunette? I don't know. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to, but we'll see what it looks like on that front. Overall, Joe, your takeaway from Chris MacFarland, what he had to say yesterday, the process the Predators had to go through to land him. What did you kind of walk away from yesterday thinking about the Chris MacFarland experience and the hire to get him to this point?
Yeah, look, I came away impressed. I thought he came off well. I thought he came off genuine in terms of his, emotion about Colorado and all that they did for him. And obviously we talk about like the bidding war or whatever, and Colorado ultimately allowing him to leave and stuff. It probably wasn't easy for him too, I mean, I think most people are like in his spot, want to get to the point where, you are the buck stops with you and it's your show and everything like that. But he's been in a very successful organization, and you're talking about, moving across the country, and, you could look at the Nashville Predators, just the situation. There's a reason they're in the mushy middle, like it's not easy to get out of it. You could look at the situation and be like, okay, what is the answer? Like, it's not easy. So I think it's a big win for the Preds. Bottom line, doesn't guarantee anything. Doesn't mean he'll be good, but of the possible candidates out there, and they talked about, Carolina, they look like Carolina thing that got shut down. I mean, it seems like he's about as pleasing a possible hire as you can have for the fan base. Presser was good. And yeah, I take away beyond that, like we've been talking about. I think at this point, I'd be quite surprised if Andrew Brunette isn't coaching. I think I'd say that. Pretty surprised. And now, it's going to be interesting. Like he said, and it's exactly right. Like, you have to keep stacking good players on good players, and you have to do that. And the idea of getting that franchise changing, player, I mean, everybody wants that, but it's not easy to do. But in the meantime, can you keep making good choices and stockpiling your roster and your lower levels of the organization? I mean, it's like obvious stuff, but I thought he came off well.
It is going to be interesting to me when he I guess looks under the hood, to use a term that he brought up. What is he going to walk away with kind of immediately here in terms of a plan of action, right? Because, as Alex brought up, I mean, there is a cap floor that you have to be at. The cap is going up. I mean, if they start trading off a bunch of huge contracts, you're going to have to replace that money somewhere to get to the cap floor. So you got to keep that in mind if you're the Predators. Now, I also, if I'm Chris MacFarland, like, if you feel like there's somebody you need to move on from, then you just do that and you figure out how to get to the cap floor after that. But like the Marchessault thing to me is, I think we've reached the point, Joe, where it's been 2 years. It has not worked out with Jonathan Marchessault, and it's not a fit. And I think if you can get out of that this offseason, that'd be something I'd be really interested in if I'm the Predators. And it's not really even about the money, because the Predators are in a pretty decent spot when it comes to the salary cap and the flexibility that they got moving forward here. But I just think you're talking about somebody that doesn't fit here. And I just don't know if that situation is going to improve as he gets older here. So like, that would be a move that I'd be looking for him to make pretty quickly. And my guess is That's not going to take much looking under the hood to figure that out, right? Like, it's pretty clear that it's just not working here. Beyond that, I think it could go a lot of different ways. Like, I'd be open to, we said it earlier in the show, there's nothing or no one on this roster right now, including some of the big names that we've talked about for a long time. None of those guys are untouchable. Like, I wouldn't consider anybody that they have right now untouchable, but I'm very interested to see, in the next 5 weeks here, getting into free agency, how does he view, the way he wants to operate with this roster in the short term?
Yeah. And certainly in the March or so, especially if there's not, like, I guess if you were going to make a coaching change, you had someone else in mind, which again, I don't think is going to happen. But if that were the case, I guess you could make a case for, okay, different system, different coach, maybe he can still fit. But I mean, I think Brunette staying makes it even more urgent that Marchessault needs to go. And I think Alex hit on something that is probably the way it largely goes is, maybe you make a move like that, you do a couple things, but the next trading deadline might be like a big time sell-off, right? I mean, I think that's if next season goes as we think it probably will, and who knows? I mean, I don't know what young guys are going to come in all of a sudden be better than we thought, or, I mean, I don't know. Is Stamkos just going to continue? If he's on this heater from the start of the season, what does that mean for your bottom line, your power play? I mean, but if it goes away, probably going to go, then you're probably going to be in a position to sell. And yeah, I think that definitely like the O'Reilly, let me do you a solid, just hang around. I think that's over, which is a good thing. Yes.
Yeah. 615-737-1025. Our phone number, 615-737-1025. More of your reaction on the Chris MacFarland front on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5 The Game. Taking your thoughts at 615-737-1025. Your reaction to Chris MacFarland and his press conference from yesterday. Dave on the text line, Joe, says, trade Roman Josi and UC Saros for Austin Matthews. Send him up to Toronto. Get Austin Matthews in here.
There you go.
I mean, look, I'm not going to discount the possibility at some point over the next little bit here of an Austin Matthews trade. Like if Matthews over like the next year makes it pretty clear that he doesn't want to be in Toronto anymore, then I would probably advise the Maple Leafs to go ahead and trade him rather than just, lose him for nothing. So I'm not going to discount that possibility. I will say if the Maple Leafs trade Austin Matthews, it will not be for Roman Josi and UC Saros. They're not going to be looking for a 36-year-old defenseman and a goalie on a long-term contract that hasn't been very good the last couple of years.
Who isn't playing well. Yeah. So it wasn't that long ago we were talking about like Saros deals that were like would have brought back like a lot,
Yeah.
And that's not the case anymore. Between his performance and his contract, the haul that you can get for him has diminished greatly.
Yeah, for sure.
A couple of years.
One texter says, don't you guys find it hard to believe that he's yet to, quote, look under the hood? Had to have been part of his hiring process. No. I mean, I would say this. I'm sure he's got a loose familiarity with the entire organizational structure of the Predators, right? Like, number one, he's in the same division, so there's already some familiarity there with the current roster. And, you look at the prospect, they're all familiar with prospects in the National Hockey League. But there's a difference between having, somewhat of a vague familiarity of what an organization has and then being in charge of said organization. And they were in the playoffs a week and a half ago, right? So, he had not started talking with the Predators until after they were out of the playoffs. So he just hasn't been on the job hardly at all to this point. So it's going to be a minute before he figures all that stuff out to an intimate enough level where you feel like you can make an informed decision on it.
Right. Like you actually, now that you have the job, you can talk to the scouts, you can talk to the people in personnel, you can talk to the players, the prospects. Like you can get to know everybody and really get inside information that you're not getting as a candidate for a job. That's not that you don't have access to the information you have now. So yeah, I mean it's a totally different thing. Of course, he could probably rattle off, the top 25 prospects. He probably, if someone asked him yesterday, he could have rattled off the top 25 prospects in the organization or something like that, right? Yeah. And he knew a lot of them anyway. But yeah, there's a huge difference between being familiar with this job you might take and then having it, and all of a sudden it's like I need every granular detail available to me. No job candidates getting that. No one has time to do it.
Trevor asking if you had to choose between trading for Matthews or Brady Tkachuk, who would you choose? I mean, that one's easy to me. I would go Austin Matthews, but that's just me. I mean, he plays center. Wasn't that long ago where he scored 69 goals in a regular season. I mean, it's gone, he's been some injuries that Matthews has dealt with. He's in Toronto. This last year he played 60 games. He only had 53 points. So it hasn't all been perfect for Matthews the last couple of years, but that one's pretty easy to me. I would go Matthews.
Yeah. And also it's spelled with an O, Trevor, just so you know, it's Austin with an O. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about one of the prolific goal scorers of the league. I mean, everybody loves Brady Tkachuk, but the production difference there is pretty significant.
Loppy on the YouTube chat saying that you got to focus on grabbing McDavid here in a couple of years. I've talked about that. I mean,
you've already said that plan. I love that plan.
I mean, I think if you're an NHL general manager, particularly on a team that you don't feel like is on the doorstep of winning a championship next year, you'd be crazy not to have McDavid somewhere on the back burner of your mind, right? I think you'd be insane not to be thinking about that a little bit.
100%. In fact, now, someone should have asked MacFarland about that yesterday. Next time, Robby.
Yeah. Well, maybe so.
What are your McDavid plans,
Chris,
sir?
Would you like to get in trouble for tampering here? Let's plan on Connor McDavid.
So let's say there's a hypothetical player, Monarch David. Okay.
Yes.
What might you do to get Monarch David?
What's your plan to attract this hypothetical player that could be available here in a couple of years?
For people who don't remember, I'm trying to think. In fact, that might have been not even been our show. It might have been. I might have been filling in for someone in the afternoon and like doing it with Porth. But we had John Robinson on, and I asked him about Cladavian Jowney.
Yeah, exactly.
It went well.
I'm sure it did. I'm sure he really loved that one. Good stuff. I mean, in all seriousness, he talked yesterday about, how difficult it is to acquire a superstar, franchise-changing player, right? I think everybody deep down is hoping that's what, Brady Martin eventually turns into, and maybe he will. I have no idea. I mean, Brady Martin, I like Brady Martin. I think he's going to, at minimum, be a good player in the NHL. Now, is he going to be a great player? That I can't answer. I have no idea, right? Like, I have no idea if he's going to be some franchise-changing player. But in the meantime, one of the ways you might be able to acquire one of those guys could be a couple of guys that might be free agents in a couple of years. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, those guys, it just doesn't happen very often where those guys become free agents. And right now, I mean, I can't predict the future 2 years out sitting here today, but I'd be surprised based on reading the tea leaves at this point if at least one of McDavid or Matthews doesn't make it to free agency.
I mean, is there any chance that Connor McDavid likes country music? Actually,
I know he does.
Okay. I was going to say, is there any chance he likes music or anything? Is he an AI hockey player and we just haven't known all along?
Sometimes I wonder.
He is a human who likes things. That's good. That's a good start. Okay.
You know what I think he really enjoy?
For a fact he likes country music?
Yes, I've heard him talking about it in the locker room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it like, yes, I like country music?
No, he'd be
enthusiastically talking about it.
Actually, like a respectable volume, It's good stuff.
Okay.
Respectable volume.
There's a start. Maybe Matt
start.
Duchene can sell him his place or something.
Maybe so. Maybe so.
The guitar.
Yeah. Hey, it's worth a shot, man. It's worth a shot. I mean, listen, whether it's him or not, at some point, you've got all these assets. You've got all these, this cap space that you're going to have. I mean, Chris MacFarland at some point is going to have a plan of attack to use that, right? I mean, not all these guys we're talking about that are, young parts of this roster or prospects. Not all of them are going to, number one, make it, but not all of them are going to get through this unscathed without being traded for somebody, right? Like somebody's going to get traded for somebody at some point here. So, like, I don't know who that's going to be and what specifically that's going to look like. I'd be surprised if that somebody was Brady Martin. But really, outside of that, I'm leaving the door open for every possibility.
Yeah. You also still hope that like some of those other names are like somewhere in the range of untouchable because they know for sure they're going to be good.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Like Surin, like is he going to, like you'd hope that there'd be some other guys beyond him that are like, oh no, we're not parting with that guy. But
yeah,
I have no idea. Texter saying, what kind of country? Please not bro country. Is bro country like Morgan Wallen? Is that bro country?
I don't know. Would
like
he qualify?
Florida Georgia line?
I think it's probably more Florida Georgia line, that kind of stuff.
Connor, do you like Florida Georgia line? Is there any chance that as the Titans have had their GM and coach singing Florida Georgia line on Broadway, is there any chance that Brunette MacFarland could do a duet?
I'd
Probably
love
not.
for like, what if McDavid came here? They end up winning a championship. What do we think the celebration would look like for Connor McDavid here in Nashville? Like, would he
a brief
have a
smile?
pulse? Yeah. I'm starting to think it's the other way. I think he's wound so tight about all this stuff.
Yeah, go
he might
Ovechkin
go
on this
Ovechkin
mother.
on everybody. Yeah, he might.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that idea. Just absolutely lose your mind, Connor. Every rooftop on Broadway, Lower Broad. That'd be amazing. Cody says, put Matthews to Preds in football terms for the Titans. I don't know, like a really high producing receiver, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. Like, I'm trying to think of a quarterback comparison.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he's a centerman, so I guess you could make the quarterback comparison.
I mean, if you want to go by talent, right? Like, he's Josh Allen. That's what he is.
Or I was going to say, he's like Lamar Jackson. He's a quarterback, but he also scores a lot of his own touchdowns. How about that?
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, So, I mean, look, like I said, it wasn't that long ago. He scored 69 goals in 81 games. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's freakish. So, I mean, he hasn't approached that the last couple of years. We'll see if he gets back. But, I mean, there's a lot of people out there that think that when it's all said and done, he's like the one guy that's in the league that may end up challenging Ovechkin's goal record, right? So, like, I would keep that in mind.
Touchdowns are good. Goals are good.
I mean, he's been a 60 goal scorer twice in his career. That's not a number that's easy to get to. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll wrap up the show coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025 The Game. Boxing fans, 1025 The Game and Team Boxing League have your chance to win tickets to see Nashville Smash take on the Atlanta Attack at Municipal Auditorium on Friday, June the 12th. Text the keyword FIGHT to the game text line at 615-737-1025 to enter for your chance to win. Again, FIGHT to 615-737-1025. A lot of discussion about the idea of trading for Austin Matthews or Connor McDavid. Still a long ways off. We'll see if either the Leafs or the Oilers can convince those guys to stick around long term. That would be their plan right now. We'll see if it actually happens.
Those two guys would look good on top line for the Preds together. How about that? You know, I like that. Well, M&M boys, huh? You can put anybody with I mean, you could put McCabe. Chase McCabe could be the third guy on that line, make it an M&M line, and
Let's go to the front of the net, man.
Be one of the best lines in. That's right. Just go in there and throw your body around a little bit, Chase.
Yeah, no, that yeah. They're good, but they're not that good.
Yeah, I mean, you might
McDavid and Matthews are good, but let's keep it real.
I'd love to see Chase skate though. That'd be fun.
Yeah, this is my fault. I usually take these shots at Chase in the first half hour of the show, so he's not listening. So this is my fault for bringing up Chase's lack of athleticism.
There you go.
This late in the show, he's definitely going to hear this now.
Yeah. Now people are already talking about trading Forsberg on the YouTube chat for
yeah.
We'll see.
A heated argument about trading Forsberg. Like you said in there, if those teams, I'm going to read your quote. If those teams are losing, those type of players are probably recalibrating the type of player they're looking for. Not going to be a mid-30s forward.
Yeah, that would be my guess. So we'll see. We're a long way away from that. I mean, but I'd have that in the back of your mind if you're Chris MacFarland. And in the meantime, you got to build the team. None of that's going to matter. You're not going to be in contention to land any of those guys if you can't show over the next couple of years that you've got some sort of process here that's on the doorstep of winning, right? Some of that's going to involve the development of the young players that you've already drafted. Some of that's going to involve really good decision-making by Chris MacFarland and the hockey ops staff over the next couple of years. Some of that's probably going to involve, whether it's Andrew Burnett or otherwise, coaching, and what does that look like over the next couple of years. So there's a whole lot that's going to go into this. In the meantime, if you're Chris MacFarland, you got to chip away and make good decisions here in order to put yourself in a position where maybe in a couple of years you can attract some of these guys, whether it's McDavid or not. If you run across a good free agent class, it's not going to be the case where every single year the free agency class sucks as bad as this one does. Every now and then you're going to have some good free agent classes, and you need to put yourself in a position to attract some of those guys.
Right. And look, I think any GM, you said it, and I mean, people are like, it's not happening. I think you're absolutely committing malpractice as a GM in this league if you weren't at least thinking about that. And just imagine, okay, what would it take? And if you're the Preds, a lot of it is MacFarland hoping Brady Martin's great, right?
Yes.
I mean, a lot of it is just some of the people already in place, are they going to be best case scenario? You have to have that. He has to love the coach. You have to demonstrate some success before it gets to that, right? Yes. He's not going to go. He's not signing up. He may not sign up for a ready-made contender right now. And again, that can be difficult too, right? Financially. But he's not signing up for a huge unknown either.
No.
You've got to be. But if you have the look of an up-and-coming team with some exciting young players and you've made a couple moves for some veterans and you look like you got your crap in order, this city it should absolutely be an asset for these local professional teams.
Joe, it has. It's been a very busy week for the Haslam family, Joe. We saw the Myles Garrett trade earlier this week from Cleveland. So Jimmy Haslam doing some work there. And Bill Haslam just announced a new GM yesterday. And now apparently, Joe, Dee and Jimmy Haslam have donated a $130 million investment into the University of Tennessee and its Haslam College of Business. $130 million.
Dang.
There you go. That's the largest in university history.
That is strong. I got some of my kids' really good buddies are in the Haslam College of Business starting out. So I guess you guys are getting some sweet new laptops here coming up here, huh? some new printers. What else?
What about a quarterback?
Yeah, can you divert any of that money to Josh Heupel? Is there any way? I feel like the Haslam family has done pretty well.
They've done their part.
Helping out Tennessee football.
Yeah, they've done their part. That's going to do it for us today here on the program. Hope everybody has a wonderful rest of the day. Next Man Up with Jake Lyman coming up next. You're listening to 102.5 The Game.